Final speaker for the day is MANASA MAGESH. As a student of grade 12, MANASA has spent her years exploring and learning how her own worldview and perspectives have evolved. Change always scared her, but today she has come to understand that not only can our perceptions change, but also our understanding of change itself can shift. Today, she would like to share her insights on how our perception of change can transform.
The light that illuminates all of our nights, from the moon that departs brisk at dawn, even that constant we've grown to depend on, unfailingly changes its form. So if we can't even depend on the moon, the thing that's literally called a heavenly body, what can we depend on? What is that one constant in all of our lives? Good evening, everyone. My name is MANASA MAGESH, and today I'm here to talk about riding the winds of change. Excuse my screeching throat and my nasally voice, because today the wind refused to blow the other way. As a wise and mature 5-year-old, I had constants of my own, like watching Dora the Explorer on repeat every day. By the way, great picture, yeah? Her singing backpack, her monkey companion, and something about the way she just pretended to ignore my answers to her questions just kept me going. Like, come on, Dora, we both know Swiper's right behind you. I've been telling you for the past 15 minutes. Yelling at Dora became a constant of mine, along with, of course, refusing my bedtime. But then, as life demands, I grew up. I started a new, sophisticated phase of my life. Boy bands. I used to be obsessed with the infamous One Direction. I knew all their songs, word for word, their hairstyles through the years, and even their mothers' names. One of my older friends had told me, this is just a phase, you will grow out of it. Something about that statement made me so angry. I never wanted to stop liking them and never thought I would. I mean, what are the pastime does a 12-year-old have? But then, as it turns out, she was right. From then, new phases kept coming and going, and I never batted an eye. But as we grow up, change becomes something so much more personal. It becomes about our personality, our appearance, our mental health. There was the story of a man who had adopted a fish. As anyone would with a small fish, he put it in a small jar and fed it well. As days went by, the fish kept growing in size, and so the man shifted to a larger, rounded glass bowl. As more time went by, the fish kept growing, and the man kept shifting it through jars of ascending sizes until he finally had to let it go. In the same way, we outgrow people. There was nothing wrong with the man, nothing wrong with the fish, and nothing wrong with the bowl. Change in time proves them to be incompatible. When people cannot grow together, they are only bound to grow apart. Think of your life as a closet. The more and more clothes we buy, we donate the ones that don't fit us as well anymore. So it becomes someone else's turn to try on their new clothes and your turn to try on yours. Okay, but what if I miss my old clothes? What if I want my old clothes back? What if my new clothes don't suit me as well? These questions can only be answered if you tear that tag off and make it official. Sometimes, when we keep testing the water gets too cold before we can actually jump in. Okay, but what about the changes we try and make to the world? I was a very shy and timid child and thought of what her first word should be before even saying it, only for it to be Amma. I meticulously planned my life, made backup plans for things to just go its own way. I didn't realize that the world didn't revolve around MANASA. The world didn't plan itself the way MANASA did. And when things didn't go my way, I spiraled and could not for the life of me work under pressure. That young and naive 16-year-old, yes, I'm 16 and a half, didn't realize that the world doesn't revolve around her. Another thing people often fail to address is how our perception of people changes. No, I'm not talking about the outgrowth of someone, but how we perceive them before even getting to know them. One of my best friends today, who I just met last year, used to be someone I didn't like very much. And it's the silliest kind of dislike, where based on a single sentence she said, I assumed that she was arrogant and conceited. Little did I know that that girl was going to be a huge part of my small world. The girl who I thought was condescending and smug is the same one that's cheering me on my first TED Talk today. And funnily enough, she once thought the same of me too. From this, I realized that people don't need to change for their perception to. Us humans judge way too fast, maybe as a defense mechanism. But I think we should learn not only to not judge a book by its cover, but be willing to read a book with blank pages. Who knows? You might be the one who fills them in. Change causes pain, but change also causes growth. It's all about perspective. My sister recently left for Canada to pursue her higher education. And every time she comes to visit, there comes a time where she has to leave. I want to be angry. I want to sit and cry about it all day. But knowing that she's left to fulfill her potential is the only thing that keeps me going. Sometimes, change in someone else's life causes us so much more pain than we can imagine. In times like that, we must hold on to the hope of change. The hope that everything happens for a reason and the best is yet to come. To put everything we've talked about today into perspective, here is a Venn diagram for that very thing. This Venn diagram represents perception, change, and growth. How I see this is that perception and growth constantly changes, while change itself remains the only constant. Voyaging back to the first question I asked all of you tonight, what is the one constant in all of our lives? Change. And so we have tonight's balance sheet. On the liabilities side, we have change and failure. Those are things we owe to the world to receive acceptance and self-reflection. Then we have our efforts, our capital, the amount we invest in ourselves, minus our drawings, our time, the personal time we invest to make those efforts happen, plus our results, our net profit, the amount we gain. Moving on to the asset side, we have acceptance, the stage after change, self-reflection, the change after failure, and comes the most important part of our balance sheet, the suspense account. The assets and liabilities will not tally without the suspense account. Both sides will not tally without the suspense account. That suspense account is our belief. The belief that everything will be all right and that change is for good. And so we have our balance sheet total, prosperity. Change plus failure plus efforts minus our time plus results is equal to prosperity. In the same way, acceptance plus self-reflection plus belief is equal to that very prosperity. When all feels lost and you're down in the dumps, remember that the only way out is up. Every fight, every cry, every scar has led you to the person you are today. It's okay to pace yourself in this rapidly changing world we live in. And so, we must embrace such change to make room for more phases, more boy bands, and more Dora the Explorer. Let's live by what Dora has taught us, to explore fearlessly and to carry everything we need in a trusty purple backpack. You can look at the moon and see how it won't be the same tomorrow, or you can look at it and see that if you are allowed to have phases, so is the moon. Steering away from the path to follow your own leads to that very prosperity. It's like a train that derails to follow its own path, or a horse that's headed to a destination unknown. It's time to get on that horse, grab its reins, and ride through the winds of change. It's time to become the change and declare, swiper. No swiping today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Magesh.